I lost everything that defined me, my plans, my confidence, my future. And when there was nothing left to hold, there comes a moment in life when everything you believed in collapses at once. Not slowly, not gently. One moment you are standing, the next moment you are learning how to breathe again. Life does not ask for permission before it changes you. It simply does. I know that moment. I have lived it. I know what it feels like to lose direction, to lose certainty, to lose the future you carefully imagined. I know what it feels like to wake up and realize that the life you planned no longer exists. I lost everything, not just things, not just comfort, but the version of myself I thought I would always be. And maybe you are there right now. Maybe you are carrying pain in silence. Maybe you are tired of explaining yourself. Maybe you smile for the world while your heart is quietly breaking. Maybe you are asking questions that have no answers yet. When I lost everything, I thought life was ending. I thought God had turned his face away from me. I thought my story was over before it truly began. Pain has a way of making you feel invisible, abandoned, and small. Pain is not cruel without purpose. Loss strips you of illusions. It removes the labels you hide behind. It forces you to meet yourself without distractions. And that meeting is terrifying, because when everything is gone, you are left with nothing but truth. I remember the nights that felt endless. The silence that screamed louder than noise. The heaviness in my chest that made even breathing feel like work. Grief took many shapes. It was not just about what I lost, but about what I would never become. Grief is not weakness. Grief is love that has nowhere to go. I learned quickly that strength does not arrive as confidence. Strength arrives as survival. It whispers, not shouts. It says, get up, even when your body and soul are tired. It asks you to try again when quitting feels easier. Some days, standing up felt like courage. Some days, staying alive felt like achievement. I showed up anyway, not because I was fearless, but because I refused to disappear, and that is something no one tells you. You don't need to feel strong to survive, you just need to keep going. When everything fell apart, I realized how temporary everything external truly is. People leave. Circumstances change, plans fail, bodies break, but there is something inside you that loss cannot destroy, your soul, and when everything else is gone, your soul becomes your anchor. I stopped asking why this happened to me, and I started asking what this moment was shaping me into. Pain became my teacher, silence became my mirror, loneliness became my classroom. Slowly, painfully, I began to find my strength. Not the strength the world applauds, but the strength that survives quietly, the strength that heals without an audience, the strength that keeps faith even when answers are delayed. Losing everything did not end me, it revealed me. I learned that losing your life as you know it does not mean losing your purpose. Sometimes it means finally finding it. Sometimes the breaking is not your ending. Sometimes it is your becoming. If you are hurting right now, hear this clearly. Your story is not over. This pain is not your identity. This moment is not your conclusion. You are not being buried. You are being planted, and what grows from this pain will be stronger than what was lost. After everything was taken away, time began to feel different. Days were longer, nights were heavier, and the world moved on as if nothing had happened. People expected healing to be quick, pain to be silent, and strength to look presentable. But healing does not follow deadlines, and pain does not ask for permission before it speaks. I learned how lonely recovery can be, not because people are cruel, but because pain is deeply personal. Everyone supports you in words, but survival happens in private. It happens in the quiet moments when no one is watching and you must choose yourself again. There were days I doubted my worth, days I questioned whether I still mattered. Loss has a way of making you feel invisible, like your value was attached to what you could do, what you had, or who you used to be. But pain taught me a truth that changed everything. My worth was never connected to what I lost. It was never dependent on my strength, my success, or my circumstances. My worth was created, not earned. When I understood that, I stopped apologizing for existing. I stopped measuring my life by old standards that no longer fit me. I stopped comparing my journey to people who had not walked through my fire. Faith became quieter but deeper. It was no longer about perfect prayers or strong beliefs. It was about trust when I didn't understand, about holding on even when my hands were shaking. Some prayers were nothing more than tears and silence, but even silence reaches heaven when it comes from a sincere heart. I realized that God does not always remove the storm, but He teaches you how to stand in it without losing yourself, and sometimes the lesson is patience, sometimes it is surrender, sometimes it is learning that strength does not mean control. Surrender did not weaken me, it freed me. When I accepted my reality instead of fighting it, peace slowly found me, not the peace of having everything, but the peace of knowing I would survive without it. Pain began to soften me instead of hardening me. It taught me empathy for others, gratitude for small mercies, and humility in moments of pride. I learned that strength is not about never falling apart. Strength is about refusing to let pain turn you bitter. Strength is choosing grace when anger feels justified. Strength is continuing to love life even when life has hurt you deeply. And one day, without realizing when it happened, I noticed something had changed. The same pain that once frightened me was no longer controlling me. It had become part of my foundation, not my prison. I stopped asking for my old life back. I started building a new one, rooted in honesty, faith, and acceptance. I understood that loss can either define you or refine you, and I chose to be refined. If you are listening to this while carrying pain, while feeling lost or delayed, hear this with your heart. You are not late. You are not weak. You are not forgotten. You are in the middle of becoming someone deeper, wiser, and unbreakable in ways you cannot see yet. Hold on. Your strength is growing. Quietly, there is a moment in healing when you realize that the pain is no longer the loudest voice in your life. It is still there, but it no longer defines every thought, every breath, every decision. That realization does not arrive suddenly. It comes slowly, after many quiet victories no one ever applauded. I began to notice strength in the smallest things, in waking up without resentment, in speaking kindly to myself, in choosing patience when frustration tried to take over. These small choices became the building blocks of my new life. I learned that strength is not about proving anything to anyone. It is not about showing the world how fearless you are. True strength is deeply internal. It is about making peace with your scars and allowing them to remind you of how far you have come, not how much you have lost. Scars are not signs of failure. They are evidence of survival. For a long time, I thought healing meant returning to who I was before everything broke. But healing does not take you backward. Healing introduces you to someone new, someone softer yet stronger, someone who understands pain but is not ruled by it. I had to unlearn the belief that my life had look a certain way to be meaningful. I had to release the timelines, the comparisons, the expectations placed on me by the world and by myself. I learned to honor my pace, my process, my path. Pain stripped me of illusions, but it also gifted me clarity. I could see people more clearly. I could see myself more honestly. I could see what truly mattered. I realized that some losses were actually releases, some endings were protection, some closed doors were mercy in disguise. The version of me that once begged life for answers was slowly being replaced by someone who trusted the journey, even without understanding it. I stopped demanding certainty and started practicing faith. Faith does not mean you are never afraid. Faith means you move forward despite the fear. There were moments when doubt returned. Healing is not linear. Some days felt like progress, other days felt like setbacks. But I learned not to shame myself for difficult days. Healing allows space for both strength and vulnerability. I stopped seeing vulnerability as weakness. Vulnerability became my power. It allowed me to connect, to empathize, to inspire without pretending to be perfect. My brokenness became the bridge between my story and someone else's survival, and that is when I understood something beautiful. Pain that is healed does not disappear. It transforms into purpose. Your story does not end with what hurt you. Your story begins with what you choose to do with that hurt. I stopped hiding my pain. I started honoring it, because it was proof that I had lived, loved, lost, and survived. If you are afraid of your scars, don't be. One day, someone will see them and feel less alone in their own pain. One day, your survival will become someone else's hope. You don't need to rush becoming. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to keep choosing yourself one day at a time. You are not broken beyond repair, you are becoming beyond imagination. Onto, I discovered the strength I never knew I had. As I grew stronger, I realized something unexpected. Strength changes the way you see life. Things that once terrified you no longer have the same power, not because they disappeared, but because you discovered that you can survive them. I stopped fearing loss the way I used to. Once you lose everything and live through it, fear loses its grip. You understand that even in the worst moments, life continues. You continue. I learned how to sit with myself without distraction. No noise. No pretending. Just honesty. And in that honesty, I found peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from having answers, but the kind that comes from acceptance. Acceptance is powerful. It doesn't mean you agree with what happened. It means you stop letting it control your future. I also learned the importance of boundaries. Pain teaches you discernment. You begin to protect your energy, your heart, your time. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. I realized that strength sometimes looks like walking away. Sometimes it looks like saying no. Sometimes it looks like choosing rest over resistance. And as I healed, gratitude quietly entered my life, not gratitude for the pain, but gratitude for the growth it created, gratitude for the clarity, gratitude for the resilience I never knew I had. I stopped seeing my life as something that went wrong. I started seeing it as something that went differently, and different does not mean worse. Sometimes different is exactly what saves you. I found meaning in helping others through their pain. I discovered that my voice had power not because it was loud, but because it was honest. When you speak from truth, hearts listen. I realized that my survival was not accidental. I was still here for a reason. My story still mattered. My life still had purpose. You don't go through storms to stay the same. You go through storms to become someone who can guide others through them. If you are still in your storm, please remember this. You don't have to be fearless. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep moving forward, even if it's one small step at a time. Your life is not defined by what you lost. Your life is defined by what you rise into. And even now, even here, even with scars, you are strong. There comes a moment when you stop surviving and start living again. Not because everything is perfect, but because you have made peace with imperfection. You no longer wait for life to return to what it was. You learn how to build beauty from what is. I once thought strength meant having everything under control. Now I know strength is trusting yourself even when control is gone. Strength is waking up every day and choosing hope, even when yesterday hurt. I lost everything, and in that loss I found something greater than what I had before. I found myself. I found faith that did not depend on outcomes. I found courage that did not need applause. I found a purpose rooted in truth. Pain did not break me. It introduced me to my depth, and if you are listening to this, carrying your own invisible wounds, please hear me. Your pain is not proof that you are weak. It is proof that you are human, and your survival is not small. It is extraordinary. Do not let your worst day convince you that your life has no meaning. Do not let your scars silence your voice. The world does not need a perfect version of you. It needs a real one. You are allowed to start again. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to rise differently than you imagined. When life takes everything from you, it gives you a choice. You can let the loss define you, or you can let it refine you. You can live in bitterness, or you can rise in grace. I chose grace, and every day I choose it again. One day you will look back at this season and realize it was not the end of you. It was the beginning of your strength, the moment you stopped asking life to be easy and started trusting yourself to be strong. So if today feels heavy, breathe. If tomorrow feels uncertain, trust. If the road ahead feels lonely, remember this. You are not alone. You are not finished. You are stronger than you know. You lost everything, and that is how you found your strength.